So with everything that's been going on with prices and eggs and a new administration and the president trying to get things turned around, I came across this video. Several people who give good tips and tricks as far as how to survive on a single income. Let's check it out.
Or are you mad because you're only dependent on your husband for funds? And that's the only money that you have. And he don't even got it like that. So...
Hey, any other single parent, single income households, people, can I borrow you for a second for some advice? So I live in Portland, Oregon. I am a single parent to two children. I'm a nurse and I work full time. I live in a very middle class area where I need to stay so my kids can go to school here. How are any of you affording to live on one income? For context, my rent when I moved in was $2,350. It is being raised to $3,000 because there were some improvements done to the house. It's still very basic. So $3,000 a month, which is more than I could ever afford as a nurse. And so frustrating having gone to college, paying those bills, got a degree, work hard to give back to other people, cannot afford to live in my neighborhood. I don't know how anyone is affording to live right now. I don't have generational wealth. I am financially responsible. I can't afford to live anymore. I can't afford any of it. Between the increased cost of groceries, housing, everything else, it's not possible for me anymore. So just wondering what y'all are doing. I'm assuming you're working multiple jobs, which I could do. Definitely quality of life probably wouldn't be there, but I don't know that there's any other choice. Sad that and frustrating. And I know the boomer folks.
Let me just jump in here real quick. The one thing that I noticed that she said is that she lives in Oregon. That whole area, Portland, Seattle, Washington, Oregon, those areas up there are pretty costly. So here's my thinking, and maybe you guys disagree with it, and if you do, feel free to comment. If you're in a situation where you're a single parent trying to raise kids on a nurse's income, one thing I do know that across the United States, nurses are in high demand. So she could go anywhere. She chooses to live in Oregon. First of all, I couldn't even imagine paying $3,000 a month to rent. I would be leaving Oregon as soon as I could get out of there. I'm sorry, and I understand some people want to be where they are because they like where they're at, but sometimes you just have to do what you have to do.
It's probably a huge overgeneralization, but like people like my parents, bought a house for 50 grand that's now worth $1 million, and that's their retirement, and that's their stuff. That's not my money. And here, I will never be able to own a home. I did when I was married because there were two incomes, but as a single person, I will never be able to own a home. I will never be able to save for retirement. I will never be able to not work a lot of hours. And I thought that if I did all the things that were sold to me, I would be able to survive, but that's not the case. So what are y'all doing?
One thing I notice, I pick up on these kind of things because you hear me say in all my videos, I always look at everything from a biblical perspective. The Bible tells us that there is life and death in the power of our tongues, our words. So my question to her is, are you speaking life or are you speaking death? If you just listen to her talk, she's telling you what she's never going to be. I will never have the house. I will never have the money to do this. I will never be that. I will never. Not one time did I hear her say that she is going to have those things. What people don't realize is you attract what you speak. And that's exactly what she's doing, and probably why she will never have those things until she recognizes how to change her speech.
To get by. I'm sorry you're in this situation too, and it's just really disappointing.
I'm really tired of working nonstop, so that way everyone has what they need to have. I'm just really exhausted, and need to sleep back there. It just sucks, and I know it's gonna suck. It sucks. That's what I gotta say. It fucking sucks being on one income and raising two kids and trying to give them more than just the bare minimum. And I feel overwhelmed because I just work 24/7. Yeah. He's worth it, but it's killing me.
You know, I don't think anybody jumps into a situation where you start having babies and wanting to be in a relationship with somebody. I think most people, when they jump into situations like that, their intention is really to be with that person, or in this case, the guy that I'm hoping is the father of both of those children. Things happen, people break up, they get together under the wrong pretenses. You know, they do everything out of order, which I'm guilty of myself. You know, having sex and not being smart and putting yourself in positions where, you know, you have one baby, two babies, sometimes more than that, out of wedlock, and then next thing you know, the guy that you have the children with, he's moved on to something that he thinks is prettier or cuter or better, and then you're sitting here trying to raise these two kids by yourself, not to mention all the deadbeats that refuse to step up and take care of their children.
So if I was in a one-income household, what I would do is definitely look into the NACA program. I don't qualify for the NACA program, so I did some research on it, but I never got a loan for it, because what I understand is that you cannot get like a second house if you already like own a house, or if you even like on a deed, or even if you live with someone that owns a house. Like, it's really strict. But as a single parent or a single household person, I believe you can qualify for the NACA program. That's NACA.com. Literally, like, some of the programs, they'll pay for your down payment, and I think you get like a social worker assigned to you. So whoever like is familiar with that program, drop some gems in the comments. I love this conversation. Sorry for smacking. I'm not gonna smack no more. I'm gonna put a battery in my unsmoke detector test. Y'all coming for me in the comments. But definitely look into the NACA program. Don't feel like you're defeated because you're one income household. Like, there's definitely ways to get around it. It's going to be a lot of paperwork, but if you go to NACA.com or even go to YouTube videos and watch people who are familiar with the program, you see a lot of success stories. People are buying like multi-family units using the NACA program where they had barely no down payment. Like, it seems like a really, really good program for people that qualify. And I believe you have to make a certain amount to even qualify. So definitely look into that, NACA.com. And for those of you who have experience with NACA, drop some gems in the comments, because I want to know too.
Y'all, I just have a quick question. I want to know how people are making it out there. Like, legit. Like, I just watched this real estate agent do like a breakdown on a house. And the house that he was doing a breakdown on was $185,000. You put down, 3.5%? I think he said it was $6,500 or something like that. Fine, whatever. Then he breaks it down by payment, and he was like, this, and this. So with your interest rate being what it is today, plus your PMI, because you didn't put down enough money, I think you have to put 20% not to have a PMI, which who the fuck has 20% just laying around, be like, here, oh, willy-nilly. And then your property tax and your insurance on a $185,000 home, you're looking at right around $1,500 a month. And I just want to know, how do y'all single? I'm not talking about my dual people out there. I'm talking about my singles. How y'all paying $1,500 a month for a place to live? And that's not including utilities. That's not including gas, or, you know, I guess that would be a utility, right? Fuck, I don't know. I'm just venting here. Anyway, plus if you have a car payment, plus if you have animals, and then your groceries. Like, I just want to know, legit, straight up, 100%, how the fuck are y'all doing it? Because where I live in Georgia, there is not one house in my area less than $250,000. You know, there's so many people out there that buy homes and rent them, blah, 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 and they need to make money. But some of these places where I live, they are renting rundown shacks for $1,500 to $1,800 a month, and some of them are 3-bed, 1-bath.
I've gotten really good at living within our means and budgeting for our family. About a year ago, we went on this unintentional debt-free journey to just get a better grasp on our finances, and a year later, we are finally reaping the benefits. But if you're just beginning your financial journey, your debt-free journey, whatever you want to call it, figuring out how to budget and follow that budget might be a little tricky. So let me tell you how we do it. The very first thing we did was write all of our finances down on paper. So this is looking at my husband's monthly income, putting it at the top of the page, and then writing down all of our non-negotiables or anything that was coming out of our bank account that we could see. This kind of gave us a visual on where our money was going, what we were spending it on, and the total of everything that we were spending monthly. After we had everything right in front of us, my husband did put it in an Excel spreadsheet, but you can just kind of leave it on notebook paper and it would work totally fine. Once it's all right in front of you and you can see where your money is going to, that's when you can start picking and choosing what's important, what's a priority, or anything that just you didn't even know was coming out of your bank account. This could be subscriptions, streaming services, or even the amount of times that you're spending money at Target or going out to eat. It adds up and you can start seeing those totals and the averages. And of course, everybody's budget's going to be different, but you always want to aim obviously below your monthly income. The next thing you're going to want to do is highlight all of your non-negotiables, things that you can't really change and that you just have to pay for. So this is things like rent or a mortgage, car payments, payments to your credit card companies, things like that. Now, you can always, go to your credit card companies or maybe you have student loans and see if you can get those monthly payments lowered. There's always some type of loophole or ways to work around that, but for most of the time, those are your set in stone non-negotiables, have to be paid every month. Total up those, set that total aside, and subtract that from your monthly income. And that's going to be your total of what you have left to spend. And that's going to be your gas, your groceries, anything fun, entertainment like streaming services, subscriptions, pretty much anything else. And this is when it's going to be really different, person to person, family to family, couple to couple, because whatever you have left from that total, that's when you're going to kind of pick and choose what's important to you, what's your priority. Obviously, gas and groceries are a priority, but you can pick and choose what your budget is for that. That's something we significantly decreased for our family, and we're very strict on. We really try to stick to a strict grocery budget because that was a lot of our extra money was going toward groceries. But we got rid of a lot of subscriptions, streaming services, things like that, and we now only pay for things that we actually use and utilize. So now not only do we have an actual savings account for long term, but we have what we call a play savings or a fun savings. So any extra money we can just throw in there, and when we're together as a family, we can go out and do things without the pressure of wondering how it's going to affect us financially.
So if you look right here, budgeting as a one income family of 6, that's a lot to try to take on. So her and her husband and 4 children, that's still a lot of kids on one income. Kudos to her.
Or if we have a heavier month where we need more groceries, or we have holidays, so we're baking and cooking more, we can tap into our play savings and we're not stressing, again, pulling from our regular savings or stressing that we're not going to make ends meet elsewhere.
Hey Mariah, thanks for your question. This is such a tough one. I mean, the economy just sucks right now for everyone, and a lot of people are in your shoes right now and trying to figure out what they're going to do. As I see it, you really have 2 paths that you could go with this. The first one would be, of course, to explore how could you make this work. So this would be if you really want to have a child and this is kind of your one and only hang up. This is the one thing holding you back. Now, I don't know your exact situation other than just what you've told me here in this little blurb. So I might challenge you to see if there is more flexibility than you're giving yourself credit for right now. It could be that the answer is no, you don't. But, again, because I don't know everything about your life and I'm just working with this little piece here, let's just explore the possibility, especially if this helps anyone else, that maybe there are more options than we've given ourselves credit. That could be something like an unconventional revenue stream. That could be cutting down on costs on something we wouldn't typically think about getting rid of. That could look like relocating to a more affordable state or city, or switching up your housing situation. It could mean a variety of different things. It could be looking at your job situation a little less rigidly and considering some outside the box ideas. It could mean leaving your career path and trying something different. Again, I don't know what is and isn't possible for you. It sounds like one person in your household is working and one isn't. So, I don't know all the reasons and the ins and outs of this. So again, this is such an oversimplified answer. If I were to be coaching you, we would be discussing way more specifics about your particular circumstances. Another thought would be to see how could we get you to a place where you felt like you were more financially secure, in a better place to have a child in the future. So again, I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you're in your 20s or if you're 39 and feeling like it's now or never. But that would be something to think about too, is what could we do over the next 3 to 5 years per se to put ourselves in a better place? What sort of small actions could we take that might change our circumstances in the future, even though it's not an option right now? And another thought about this topic in general, I wrote a piece for my Substack called Mother of a Dilemma. You can find it at the link in my bio. I wrote a piece a long time ago, so you'll have to go through the archives, but it's called Ruminating, with room spelled ROOM. And I, in there, talked about how a lot of times we don't need as much as we think we do for having children. Like, yes, they are expensive. I'm not suggesting they're not. But I think a lot of people get it in their head that they're like, we need the house, we need the bigger car, we need the this, we need the that. And sometimes we can challenge ourselves to say, like, is that really true? You know, what would we really need in order to do this? And I gave the example of there was a woman who lived above us in our old apartment, and she had a 1-bedroom apartment with like a office. It was like a railroad style. And we moved in when she was pregnant, and we moved out when she had like a 7-year-old, and they lived there the entire time. And she really made it work for herself. Again, not saying that that would be a desirable option for everyone. Some people would say, oh, I don't want to do that. And that's fine. But some people might be inspired by that to think like, oh, wow, that's really creative. I didn't consider how I could maybe turn this bedroom into this play area and how I could do this with this. You know, there's some moving around that could be done and some thinking outside the box. So I just use that to say that sometimes we have to adjust what the vision in our minds of what it's supposed to look like to have a child, and how much money and space and, you know, luxuries you need to actually do this. And then the other direction that you could go with this is, of course, to say, look, we don't want to do it this way. We don't like what this would look like for us financially to have a child right now. We don't feel like we would feel secure and safe and confident. It is more important to us to have that financial security, and that we're not willing to do what it would have to be done, or to take the kind of risks we would have to take, or drop in the quality of life, or whatever it might be that we would have to do to have a child. And so we're going to choose not to. And with that comes, of course, grief, if that's something that you had really wanted. So you could certainly kind of work through that grief, but reminding yourself that, you know, we chose this because it was more important to us that we were able to, you know, have that kind of stability that was important to us. And there's very valid reasons why that might be more important. So those are kind of some different angles that you could take with it. I know this is, again, really distilled and simplified. There's so much more to it. But sometimes what it is that we have to make choices between things that suck. When we feel stuck, it's usually because there isn't a clear winner. There isn't one great path that's jumping out. It's each direction requires us to do something that we don't necessarily want to do, or that kind of sucks. So I think a good path is just mapping out each of those different ways, trying to think outside the box, and then really getting honest with yourself. Like, what am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? And then once you kind of get that clarity and choose, I think you have to kind of have your own back about it, that like, this is what I chose. These are the reasons that I chose that. And yeah, there might be some doubt or grief that comes up in either direction. And I'm just going to have to work through that and support myself because I made the best choice that I could for me, for my family, for our circumstances.
You know, it was kind of long-winded, but she did give some really good points. And I think, just to sum up what she said, I think the biggest caveat here is sometimes you do have to sacrifice. I've had to make a lot of sacrifices in my life, and I'm sure even many of you watching have had to do the same. You know, sometimes you get to the point where you're like, you know what? I can't afford this 3-bedroom house anymore. I need to downsize. Or I can't afford this car note anymore. I need to sell this car and get me something, you know, used or cheaper. Those are hard decisions because a lot of people like the appearance of things and keeping up with the Joneses, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
What do we do for free activities with our kids? 3 things. We go to our library. I recently discovered that one of our 3 libraries has a toddler play area with like toys and different things. They also have certain programming for different ages of kids and adults. So that's one thing that we do. The other thing is a mom group, which ours is actually in the evenings, but it's a free group that we go to. There's actually childcare, and then the moms get to kind of hang out and have dinner together. So there might be mom groups in your area. You should look up. And then the other thing is, honestly, most of the time I don't have access to a vehicle because we only have one vehicle for our family, and my husband uses it for work. And so most days we stay home, or there are some playgrounds in walking distance of our house, but I mean 90% of the time we're just home and playing, especially when it's nice outside. We're playing outside, we're riding bikes, we're going for a walk. We might walk to the playground near us, but a lot of times in the summer it's put the swimsuits on, go outside, play with the hose, play in the kiddie pool, play with the water table. I mean, it's just, we're just at home a lot. So nothing revolutionary, but yeah, that's what we do.
This is how my husband and I are able to raise our 5, almost 6 kids on only his income. Some of these tips you might not have heard of, so let's jump into it. I'm just going to list them in no particular order. First one being, we bought our house foreclosed, so our house payment is extremely low. We live far out in the country, and so our driving time to town is at least 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back. But because I have 5 kids, I drive a car that's a little bit bigger and it takes more gas. And so I limit my driving time. I think a big one is we live in a cheaper state. We live in the state of Ohio. It is pretty cheap to live in Ohio compared to a lot of other states. Something that I do is I meal prep. I try to make a bunch of peanut butter and jellies and freeze them, sausage sandwiches, anything that I can freeze, I make and freeze ahead of time. That way my kids always have access to easy foods. And I feel like we're not wasting as much food when I'm able to meal prep. Speaking of food, we garden. So from May to October, I pretty much am able to produce all of my own produce. We have chickens that lay eggs, that provide eggs for us. So I'm not going out to the store and purchasing eggs. And as you've probably seen, eggs lately have been crazy high to buy, even here in Ohio. So I'm grateful for my chickens, and they're very easy to maintain. Thrifting is a big one in our household. I love to thrift. I love to buy secondhand, including any appliances that break. So instead of going out and buying something brand new, I will search and try to find something used. It doesn't mean we never buy anything new. We do. But if I can find it cheaper and it works for our family and for our kids, that's what I'm going to do. For that, if something breaks on our car, or if we need the oil changed, my husband will try to learn how to do whatever it is that he needs to do, whether it's the car, appliances, etc., something in the house, the furnace, he will try to fix it. When I cook dinner, I try to stretch my meals. So something that would normally take 2 pounds of ground beef, I might be using 1 pound to 1.5 pounds. You don't have to have tons of meat in your food. I do use meat, of course, but it's more pricey and expensive. So I really try to stretch my meals. And if I have leftovers, I try to turn that into a completely different meal. I love to digital coupon. You will catch me at Dollar General or Walgreens every week. I cut all of my kids' hair. My husband cuts his own hair. That saves us so much money. But my oldest son, he does not like us cutting his hair, and I'm okay with that. I will allow him to go get his hair cut. He has a hair lady that he loves. He's 8 years old. He is old enough to say, hey mom, I don't like this, and I'm okay with that. Just remember to continue to go back to your budget, relook at it, see where you can cut things out, where you can make changes, because as I'm continuing to grow my family, we've had to make changes. So I think it's important to relook over that budget. Those are just some of the many things that we do. Hopefully that was a little bit helpful for you. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, or currently a stay-at-home mom, or maybe you just have to live off of one income because of certain circumstances, I hope you're able to find this helpful.
That's kind of funny, because when I was, how just different generations change. When I was coming up, 8 years old, I wasn't allowed to make that decision. I was probably, I remember my dad taking me to still get my hair cut when I was 12, 13, so yeah, it wasn't happening in our house. It's just a different world that we live in. I'm sorry. I don't agree with that. And that's just how I was raised, maybe once he's in the teen years, 13, 14. All right. Okay. Maybe let you go get your hair done by this lady. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. One thing that is true, she was right. I live in Ohio as well, and I also live kind of like out in the country. And there are some things that's a little cheaper, but it's also some things that are pricey too. It just depends on where you are. Now, like I said earlier, there are some states you just have to investigate. If you're in a situation like the lady in Portland and that other guy in Georgia where things are just so expensive, it's time to go. I mean, it's not rocket science. You know what I mean? But I hope this video was helpful, and I hope that you all got some value out of it. I know I try to bring in a lot of different subjects, because there's so many different issues going on in the world. Whether it's people ranting about the job market or this younger generation, not wanting to grow up and be adults. I mean, there's so many different issues, and this was one I hadn't tackled yet, where people are actually trying to help you find ways to live on an income when you're a single income household, maybe a single parent household, and you're trying to do everything you can to make ends meet. So this kind of stuff is actually helpful, because a lot of times you don't really know how people are able to do it, and it can be done. We do all, I believe, need to learn how to live within our means. Again, hopefully this video was helpful. If you haven't already done so, which I hope you have, make sure you hit that like button before you jump off the video. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future content. And as always, I love you guys, and I will check you on the next one. Later.